Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Craft of the Draft podcast. This episode is a great preview and a good look into the girls' clubs for 2023. Round one gets underway on Saturday afternoon, kicking off with Tasmania and GWS's academy and the two Vic clubs, Geelong and GWV. A few academy games to start off the season. I'm one of your hosts, Nathan Seppi, joined again by Jonty Ralph Smith. How are you, Jonty?
Yeah, really good. Looking forward to previewing all the mainstream clubs or all the full-time clubs in this episode and going through what we expect to see from each of them, who the players are to watch out for.
Well, we're going to do this pretty similar to how we did our Scouting Note episode last week. So we're going to go in order, alphabetical order of all the clubs, detail who we think is going to stand out for the season. And obviously this is sort of a rolling podcast where players will improve and we'll talk about more and more players as the year goes on. But for what we have now, what we've got from the preseason, this is just going to be a bit of an insight and preview into what to expect from each club. We'll give our prediction at the end of who we think will win the whole thing. So laid back, come and listen, hear who we think is going to do well, and what to expect if you're going to go to any games this year or watch any of the live streams of the girls' club. So let's kick it off. Let's go to a Vic Country team, Bendigo. Jonty, you've dealt a lot with Bendigo. What's the talk around the club and which girls are standing out and who are the ones you should look at come round one?
I suppose before we go there, take it back a step. And Bendigo, like 12 of the 13 full-time clubs, have a new coach for this season. So obviously programs have a dedicated coach. Ross Smith, the only one who's got previous Talent League experience. So Bendigo have got Whitney Kennedy heading them up. And I know they're really excited, as all the clubs are, about what the new coach brings. And obviously being a female, that certainly helps the development pathway, having a female coach helping with the girls. But I suppose in terms of the players to watch out for, Lucia Painter's obviously going to be the big talking point. She's the one that's in the AFLW Academy. She's the one turning heads. She's a 2006 born, so she's not eligible for the draft this year. But the challenge for Bendigo, or the talking point for Bendigo, will be, as a team, how Lucia Painter focused are they? Are they too orientated? Are they too reliant on her? And how much is she able to stand out? Where are they going to play her? And where's she going to end up, I suppose, as an AFLW footballer, if she does end up at that level, as it looks like she will? She's a ball winner and a clearance mid at this level. She's very powerful. So they're her attributes. But I suppose beyond her, you've also got Lila Keck and Jamaica Douglas, or a couple of others to keep an eye on. So Jamaica Douglas is one who's nimble and she backs herself. She's really confident. So see if she, as a bottom major, is one that's able to push into calculations and really push her name up in lights. And Lila Keck generates good scoring opportunities inside 50 and is another one who reads the play well, just gets into really good positions, is the word out of Bendigo. So hopefully she's one who can push up for them.
And Bendigo take on the Murray Bush Rangers in round one. They're one of the teams who does get to play in the official first round. That game is up Murray's way. So on to the second team. Calder Cannons, a Vic Metro team. Calder, Highgate love to host a lot of doubleheaders. So if you're a Calder player, you'll get a lot of games down your end. So that's a good thing for them. But Calder is a very big team to talk about, and a lot of Strathmore girls. So a team that in terms of chemistry, you'll feel like they should be able to do pretty well this year. And in times where they lose girls for Metro, they should be able to be pretty connected and stay a pretty strong side throughout the year, and one that will probably be up there contending come the season's end. But player-wise, who's going to stand out for Calder and who's been impressing that should shine come round one?
Well, I think you mentioned Metro there, and Amy Gale is one who obviously will be playing for Vic Metro, barring injuries or anything untoward like that. She's one who hunts her own footy. She's got an outstanding vertical leap, both standing and running. We saw that at the testing day. It was obvious to watch to the naked eye, never mind what the results actually said, and they came back really positively. She releases her teammates, and she's really tough in and under. So she's got all the attributes that are really favourable on, in, I suppose, a modern AFLW game. So really looking forward to watching her. But she's just one of a host that they're really excited about. Like, she's the inside midfielder, I suppose. Maddie Albrecht is one who's had a really good pre-season, who's got elite pace. Does she play on the wing? Does she play in the forward line? She's one they're really excited about seeing what she can do. Reece Sutton's trained with some VFLW programs. I think there's a chance she might get to play with Essendon in their VFLW team does she play for Calder? That's going to be a question. She changes lanes in traffic really well and is one who, I suppose, what she does without the ball is almost just as appealing as what she does with the ball. So one to keep an eye out for. Madison Ford, limited junior footy, but one who is co-captain, which speaks to how highly they rate her. And then players like Yasmin Welshford, who's got a cricket background, and that sort of leads into her really good decision-making. Ali Spagan and Adelita Pasinga both have basketball backgrounds, so the, I suppose, archetypal female pathway where they've come from other sports, come across to footy, and brought across those athletic traits that are going to hold them in really good stead. Sarah Grundon has really good foot skills. I know, speaking to one of the coaches, he sort of says it's like watching the TV, the way she kicks it. It's really impressive. And then Emily Wright and Amy O'Kelly, a few others. So, how often they all get to play together, I suppose, is a question. But yeah, certainly selection's going to be a real squeeze down there, and they're really excited about what they've got. And that's without even mentioning Kyla Forbes, who's their bottom-aged Vic Metro talent. So there's a lot of excitement coming out of Calder. Can they match it with, wins and certainly individual development, which is obviously more important? I suppose that remains to be seen.
Oh, it's a great summary. It will be exciting to see what comes out of Calder, and they've always been there in about the last couple of years, but haven't really been able to capitalise on, I guess, there's been talent that's been around, but they haven't really pushed towards the off seasons, towards the end of the season. So, looks like a pretty exciting season for Calder. And looking at the fixture, their first game is not until round 3, which is the 1st of April. So they've got the first 2 rounds as a bye. I mean, a lot of teams have the first 2 rounds off. You'll notice throughout this pod, their first game is against the Sandy Dragons at Highgate, a 4 p.m. game. So a bit of a twilight game for the girls, which is great. And I'm pretty sure it's a double header with the boys on that day as well. So should be a good crowd, a big game to start the season for both those clubs. So good game to watch that week in round 3. And on to our third club, the second country club, Dandenong Stingrays. We've seen a bit of them, Jonty. We saw them in a practice game against Eastern the other night. But tell me, from a training perspective and coach perspective, who's been impressing in the pre-season? Who should we look out for throughout the year? And they've obviously got a lot of Vic Country talent within that squad.
Yeah, outstanding Vic Country talent in that squad. I think you could reel off 7 or 8 names. One outside of Vic Country, I will overview all the Vic Country talent, but if I did overview all the Vic Country talent and then the 3 or 4 others that have been impressing, I think we'd be here, all day. So I suppose to start with one who could push in, Meg Robertson is one they're really bullish on. She's got the basketball background and the good decision making, the ability to tighten traffic to get out, and we saw that in the practice match against Eastern, a really quality opposition. She's one they hope that can push into Vic Country. Zara Clavarino's one who's from Berwick. She plays very tall and is a reasonable kick. They're hopeful of her and her prospects. There's reasonable upside there. The brother of former AFL listed Oscar, who went to Haileybury. Zoe Basenko's one who's a really powerful athlete. She'll play through the ruck and assume Bianca Lyne's role. Bianca Lyne, obviously Vic Country listed, played through the ruck last year, but I think the view is that she probably won't play through the ruck if she does get to the next level. So she'll play off the halfback this year, and Zoe will get her opportunity in the ruck. So really interested to see how she goes, if she's able to assume that mantle really well. Gemma Ramsdale's been made the captain as a sort of high halfback. I suppose as an overall team perspective as well, they're the equal fittest and equal fastest team when you look at the testing results in pre-season overall. So that probably speaks to how strong a squad they have, not just the top end talent, but also the depth. You look at someone like a Nikita Harris, a winger who I think won the yo-yo or won the yo-yo and performed really well in the agility as well, and probably doesn't get a round 1 start because Ruby Murdoch, for example, is one that's going to be playing on the wing, playing that Taylor Gatt role, that real powerful runner. So they're some of the names that have stood out. And then, you could run through all the rest of their Vic Country names. Tara Quinn, a medium defender. Bianca Lyne, like I mentioned, will play off the halfback. Meg Robertson is one that could push into the mix. Sophie Butterworth, Gemma Reynolds, And yeah, there's more beyond that I'm forgetting. Sophie Butterworth had a really good preseason, I suppose. It's worth noting as well. Shaved 40 seconds off a 2K time trial. She worked really hard to ensure she can, I suppose, show the running patterns that are going to be compatible with the next level, and have the tank to match it with the best at Talent League level. But obviously, having watched them in the practice match like you did, Nathan, there would have been a few that stood out to your eye. For me, I suppose Felicity Crank was one who, I think she's a 19-year-old coming back, and she showed some really positive signs in that game. But from your perspective, who was it that impressed for the race? And Josh Moore, coach there as well, by the way, a very highly rated assistant coach for several years under the tutelage of Nick Cox.
Yeah, no, well, you're correct. I know there was a couple for Dandenong who stood out, and Michaela Williamson was the most prominent midfielder in that game. And no, she's always going to be one that's going to read the stoppage the best out of every midfielder. Just knew where to run, and great service into the forward 50. A couple goal assists for her in the end, made sure those forwards are getting great delivery when it was a bit of a struggle for them in that practice game at times, but really knows how to get the ball, and very agile with the ball as well, knows how to evade her opponents well and create space for her to get those forward 50 entries. Sophie Butterworth, another one like you spoke on, played pretty well, and in half forward, she's a very tough body to contend with, knows how to take a good mark, and a great kick as well, get some good distance on her kick. So someone, she can be in the forward 50 and be a threat as a marking target, but also move into the middle, and one of those running midfielders who really provides great service into the inside 50. So those are probably the two that stood out for me on the day. And you've mentioned a lot of the other girls that have been very good as well. But let's move on now to the opposition of that game, Eastern. Look, I'll kick this off with Eastern, and Ash Close is the new Eastern girls coach. So he's great figure, great to talk to, and from what I've heard from Ash and what we've seen, I'll talk about the girls that impressed in the practice game, and one that definitely stood out, Delaney. I've forgotten the last. Delaney
Madigan, I think. Yeah.
Delaney Madigan. Yeah, she stood out. Great intercept mark, really prominent, and covered the ground, especially probably one of the best on the night. Knew where to read the ball, and every time Dandenong went in, she seemed to always find her way and take an intercept mark. Great leading, great kicks to leading midfielders who were just ready to run and pounce and get Dandenong on the rebound. So one that really stood out. Grace Bubba was another one who, she was just a great runner, terrific, someone to watch that you just want to keep your eyes on, because they're going to impact the game. And she was definitely someone that put in those 1%ers all around the ground. Great tackles, great smothers, and knew really how to read the ball. Two good forwards. Georgia Knight was terrific. 5 goals, small forward, just knew how to use her body well and getting great positions to be that type of goal sneak, that typical small forward you've seen in a lot of AFLW and AFL games in general now. She was just terrific. And Georgie Brisbane was the opposite, tall forward, great contested mark, great leading patterns, and probably the tallest on the ground. If that, she was very big for a forward, and she just knew how to get herself in great positions and didn't drop any, and very accurate as well. I think 2-1 she kicked on the night, so she was terrific for sure. A couple others that didn't play. Ava Campbell, she just got announced captain, didn't play on the night. Eastern was not a full strength side, so you had a couple players are out. Laura Stone is another one that's been performing really well. Defender / midfielder type, more of a halfback rolling type that has a really good rebounding capacity. So she's been really fantastic in the preseason. And then Alicia Pisano as well played in that practice match, and she's probably the main star for Eastern this year, you would think. Just a really good midfielder that knows how to read the ball. And she's even pushing into the half forward line, and she's just a threat standing outside the packs, knows how to get herself unrecognised in a good way and create some scoring opportunities for herself. Jess Vukic is the ruck. She's been performing really well, really great leap, and great around the centre stoppages, and provides more impact than just her ruck work. So that's the Eastern side's looking very strong. And I'm going to jump the gun here, and for our predictions, they are my premiership winner.
Yeah, I think the only other thing I'd add to that is I'll be really interested to see with Ava Campbell, like you say, being named as captain. And from what I've seen of Eastern, obviously a limited sample size, but will she use her voice on the field and really lead that back line from a vocal sense and really help them set up? Like, is that the next step that she's able to take with her football? Like, obviously, she's shown that she's able to do it on the footy field and is one of their more hyped talents. And you can tell, when she's with the group that she brings it together and is really good culturally. If she's able to lead on the field, then I think that's going to round her off really well as a package.
Yeah, no, for sure. Easton's just one you got to keep an eye on this season because I think just good depth as well that will carry them even when those Metro girls are out for a bit.
And I think that's a really wise prediction, having them as premiers, and it will be hard to see anyone stopping them. But I suppose the next team to move on to is Geelong. They're led by...
Well, I'm gonna stop you quickly because I forgot to say Dandenong and Easton's first game. So I'm going to quickly go back to that. Dandenong, their first game, they are in round one, and they're playing Sydney Swans academy side at Kilsyth. And then for the Rangers, they do not feature what it looks like until
Dandenong.
Round 3, and they play Dandenong. So there you go. Bit of a preview what we got on Friday night. So yes, apologies for that. And on to Geelong. Tell me who's been impressing and who to look out for Geelong's side.
Yeah. So Alana Dickey, the coach down there, she's also the Vic Country coach. So they're in good hands. But I suppose the three names that come up are Maddie Seebeck. She's one who really thrives on the physicality and can take a contested mark up forward. So if the Geelong midfielders can, cohese, that's not a word, but if they can, have that synergy as a unit and really get it inside 50 and kick it to her advantage, then I think they'll be in really good stead. And she's one who could score a lot of goals. What's her secondary position is, I suppose, the next step for her. Chloe Adams is one that attacks the contest hard and has impressed in match sim. She's really fierce, and it's only pre-season, but she doesn't hold back. So she'll no doubt translate that into games. And hopefully there's a good balance there between inside and outside as the season goes on that we get to see. And I suppose that's the other positive of, having a full season is that we might get to see players more so in their secondary positions. If players have to build into the seasons because they've had injury interrupted pre-seasons or whatever it be, they've got the opportunity to do so. It's not just a short sample size now. So it is good to see the AFL expand the resources available for the girls' season, and that's obviously part of it. And then Lucy Maricek, another one who, probably is a really good example of that, having had a disrupted pre-season, who might not perform in the earlier rounds, but now it's not, season over for her or half a season over. She's still got plenty of time to perform. So she's one that could build in. She's got really good speed, and where she gets used is one that'll be a watch. She's quite a versatile prospect. So is she going to be used on the wing and, be able to hold her spread? And those are the sort of things that'll be her targets, or is she going to be used as a high forward who can also sort of get back and impact the scoreboard?
Yeah, for sure. And Geelong's first game is in round one. They're one of two games that don't involve an academy team. And they played the Rebels at Deakin Uni. And I was going to say good segue onto GWV, but we're actually on to Gippsland now. Interesting fact you brought up about Gippsland, which I thought is something to mention, that they only can choose from 9 clubs in total. Is that so? Quite interesting. Give me a bit of an insight into that, what the coach Nathan Boyd has told you about that, and get some difficulties about that, but also who to look out for in Gippsland for Gippsland, and which players are impressing from these clubs.
Yeah, well, I suppose the thing with Gippsland is only being able to choose from 9 clubs on a girl side of things, not a boy side of things. Let's not get confused there, is that, it dilutes or, it reduces the number of players that they do have to choose from clearly, but still from a per capita point of view, they're still really high and just as strong, and they are much stronger than the other clubs when you look at it from a per capita point of view, the number of AFLW prospects they're producing, and they're also producing many that are going on to VFLW clubs. So you look at Alicia Molesworth, for example, she's with Box Hill, she's affiliated with them and played in a practice game with them a couple of weeks ago. So it's not just obviously AFLW, it's VFLW as well, and it's process over result for them, little by little improvement every day, and hope to go back and improve the Gippsland scene as a whole so that in future years there are more teams to choose from, and it's not just a case of 9 teams, but 12 or 13, and eventually there's several leagues like there is for the boys to choose from. so that, it holds the region in good stead. But yeah, it certainly does bring its challenges, and we've seen that on the ladder. Obviously, they were the wooden sprinters last year, and I suppose from the perspective of this season, they've got Ash Centra and Amber Shoot are probably the two to keep your ears out for. Ash Centra is the one that's going to be talked about statewide. She's powerful. She can take contested marks. She's still a bottom major. She's explosive. She's got all those real attributes that you look for in an AFLW prospect. And to be honest, she's shown it at such a young age. She's still got 2 seasons ahead of her. She's going to be probably the most exciting talent league prospect on the girls' side to watch in the next 2 seasons. So wherever she plays, you expect her to dominate. How many games she can sort of win off her own boot, and that kind of thing will be an interesting watch. And also how much she's able to improve the players around her, because we know that's a huge part of talent league as well. And something that's stressed to players is, being able to weaponize the players around you, not just show your own game and play that selfless role, play that team role. So no doubt that's something that'll be talked about with her. And Amber Shoot, another one, midfielder who, her versatility will be exposed at different times, but she's one who the coaches are really looking forward to seeing what she can produce this season. And she's in Vic country, which illustrates that, she probably is, obviously, alongside Ash, their strongest prospect.
Yeah, so Gippsland, their first game is in round 2. So they play GWS Academy in Craigieburn. So again, if you're a Craigieburn resident, you're going to get a lot of footy there this year. And the reason for that being these interstate teams obviously are going to go to the airport. So Craigieburn is all of 10, 15-minute drive away. So if your club, any club you want to watch is playing an interstate team, your best bet is to drive down to Craigieburn, and there's a 90% chance you'll see a game. So that will host a lot of footy. And our next club, we're looking at the GWV Rebels. I'll chat a bit about GWV Rebels. I'm going to get my notes up for them. They are led by Sally Riley this year. And I'll tell you a bit about what she said. Jess Wrench, that's the main girl to watch out for. She's been really good with her running, a great midfielder capacity, but does a bit of the dirty work as well, not afraid to do the 1%ers. Really explosive with her footy, and she also impressed a lot in the testing as well. She got the equal highest vertical jump along with Amy Gaylor, so very explosive. Proved in her testing as well, but a bit more from GWV. They got a good mix of talls and smalls, which I think is great for the girls, for a girls team, because usually the height is quite small, so there's not a lot of tall targets. So I think if teams can just capitalise on that this year, minus the talent, just as a team perspective, that's definitely going to hold you in good stead. And the most girls that GWV have had do a pre-season, which is great, which means the region's growing out there, and showing that footy down that way is improving for the girls, and that there will be more opportunity and more talent arising. Isabella Davies is another one that tested really well. She came 4th in the yo-yo test and an 8th in agility. So another one to watch out for the GWV Rebels, and their first game is against Geelong Falcons in round 1, as we mentioned. That is at Deakin Uni. So that is one of the first games of the season. So, that is from GWV side. Now we are moving on to the Murray Bushrangers, which is, again, me. That's 2 in a row. Emma Mackey, we've had her on the podcast. Check that out if you haven't heard it yet. Great chat with Emma. She's had a lot of professional sporting background, so she's really well adapted to the coaching scene, sporting scene, and a great mentor for these Murray girls. A couple to watch out for: Grace Hay, a top ager for Murray, a tall defender, and she's able to read the play extremely well. Still developing with her football, and she's been a netballer. So, you talked about a lot of these girls are coming from, other sports. So, which I think is a good thing as well. You've got, just from a positional sort of side of it, they're going to have a bit more up their sleeve and just know how to read play a bit differently with a bit of a different style. Chloe McLahaney, hope I've pronounced that right, a great leader for Murray, an amazing left foot. She had a bit of attention last year, but again, another sport. Murray, it seems like a lot of the girls there are coming from other sports. So there's a few to keep your eye on, just purely out of development-wise, they're going to push this year and they're going to come out and show what they probably didn't get to show as much last year. Sam Pepler, another top ager, another ruck. Murray do have quite a tall side. Had some really, really good games in the first half of 2022, but unfortunately fractured her foot. So coming back into full training, and she'll be back playing pretty soon. Destiny Dot, another ruck, midfield/forward type that can move anywhere, and I think that's good for Murray to have these multi-positional players. So those are the ones that are standing out for Murray. We haven't seen a lot of them yet, and I think that's the thing with a lot of these clubs. Even if they've had practice games, we haven't been able to see this vision yet. So we're going off what the coaches are telling us for some of these things, but they're going to have the best judgment out of anyone. So as soon as these games kick off, we're going to have a lot more footage, a lot more data to go off and give some actual accurate insights as well. But I mean, these are accurate. I'm not saying they're not, but in terms of seeing it with our own eyes. And Murray, like we said, with Bendigo, they played Bendigo in round one, one of the last game of round one. So that's, I can't tell where RRO is, but it's down Murray's region, up Murray's region, I should say. So that is Murray's recap. Now we move back to the Metro scene and we go to Northern Knights. Jonty, tell me a bit about what's happening at Northern.
Yeah, so Wendy Buckley is probably the name to keep an eye out for. She's a bottom major. She's a really clean midfielder, and she was quite good in a practice match that I was fortunate enough to watch a couple of weeks ago. It was an intra-club. In fact, she's already had some exposure, and she's got a tidy skill set. When I say exposure, she's had exposure at Talent League levels. So by the time she is drafted, if she is fortunate enough to go that high, she'll have had 3 seasons of Talent League under her belt. So in the midfield this season, I would expect Talia Plunkett, another one who really impressed in that practice match and has had a reasonable preseason, another bottom major. Her contest-to-contest running and ability to impact late in games were, I suppose, elements that really impressed. So she'll hope to really build on that preseason form. She's composed in traffic and has experience on the outside, but might be used on the inside based on what I saw at that practice match a couple of weeks ago. She was playing on Buckley at times. So those are a couple of names. And then you look up forward, and Isabella Parnell, I think, was their leading goal kicker last year, or she certainly hit the scoreboard quite a bit. She was the lead up forward who can take marks and take them well. When she gets her hands on the footy, she generally is able to stick them. So she gets a little bit of separation off the defender, which is obviously so important. I suppose the next step for her will be, is she able to do it when the ball does come to ground? Is she able to clean up and be clean at ground level and get the loose ball? Lauren Jatzak will be their ruck, and she's increasingly, I suppose, impressing, slowly developing her ability to take a strong mark both around the ground and then also in the ruck, use her physicality and her size to her advantage. Elements that will hopefully be really good for the Northern midfield. Like I say, the likes of Talia Plunkett, the likes of Winnie Buckley, Molly Bell, another one in amongst there. Can they create a really good synergy with Lauren Jatzak will be really interesting to see. And then down back, Lulu Beatty is one who drives out of there, provides a lot of rebound, takes some intercept marks, and has some favourable traits. And she'll be alongside the likes of Emily Wunderlich and Kira Lemire, who both had really good cracking matches, and Emily in particular has had some moments in pre-season as well. So they're the names to keep an eye on from a Northern perspective, who were led by Alana Dickey. In fact, I think I said that Geelong are led by Alana Dickey. Geelong are in fact led by Mel Hickey. Mel Hickey is the Vic Country coach though, but I did get those names confused. But regardless, both teams in really good hands.
And Northern's first game of the season doesn't come until round 3, where they play Murray. They're playing Murray in Wangaratta. A lot of these teams just don't play for a couple of weeks. So April 1st is, if you're looking to see a lot of teams in action, April 1st is when a lot of the Metro clubs come into play. So they'll play Murray in their first round. Now we move to one of the 2 most Metro clubs of the competition, Oakleigh. What's happening down at Oakleigh? Always a very strong team. Just the nature of the talent they can choose from around the area. They're always very strong. They have been premiership winners in the past, and I'm sure they'll be looking to add to that again. Who's impressing at Oakley, and who should we look forward to watching this year?
Yeah, I'm just going to drop a couple of slightly out of the box names here rather than going mainstream. Amy Carris-Brett is a runner who has competed at the World Championships for cross country, who's impressing Coach Tyrone Vickery down there. So is her run going to be used on the wing? You would think so, and that's probably what the talk has been in pre-season so far. And Emma McDonald is one who's also very raw, but there's hope that she can push into Vic Metro. Her attributes, her athletic attributes, probably lending her to a key forward role. Only playing 10 games of footy in her life, speaks to the amount of upside she has and the feeling she has for a club who might be willing to take a punt on her, whether that be VFLW or AFLW down the line. But yeah, those are the two names that I'll put out there for now about Oakley. Sandy, I guess we can move on to, and you can tell us about.
We haven't spoken. We haven't said who they're playing in round one, Oakley.
Yeah, you can speak about that as well. But Sandy, you've got to get a couple of players on the park, and Mia Zielinski and Judy Goldman. So maybe if you want to tell us about that as well, Nathan.
I'm gonna go. But I've got to say, Oakley are playing round one.
Yeah,
we can't ignore it. We can't ignore it. Well, they're playing Geelong at Deakin Uni in round 3.
Round 2, or I think that'd be round 2, is it?
They're round 3.
Round 3, okay.
I think every Metro club doesn't feature until round 3.
But yeah,
very odd, bit odd. But yeah, no, Sandy, like you said, Mia Zielinski, great forward. That she was a leading goal kicker for Sandy last year, and she proved she knows how to win the football and take a great contested mark. Pretty big kick as well. Has had some injury troubles leading into this season, but she will be fit for round 1. And they do play Calder, like we said, in round 1, but it's round 3 for them. So that's why she will be fit to play, which is lucky because if they were playing in the official round 1, she wouldn't have been fit. Judy Goldman's another exciting prospect, but she's a 17-year-old. There's a lot of 17-year-olds at Sandy, and that's, I think, a trend you'll hear throughout the year is a lot of promise and a lot of hope coming for Sandy in the 17-year-old aspect. Sophie Mackay, you would have heard her name purely out of just the name itself. Her dad obviously played for Carlton, and Charlie Mackay, you dealt with her a bit. Jonty came out of the Dragons boys program a couple of years ago. So familiar name, but she's a very impressive midfielder, been training really well on the park, someone to watch out for, probably going to be the main player in that side this year. Caitlin Voss has been impressing really well in training as well. Showed some glimpses, especially in the futures last year, as a good running midfielder, able to move into the forward line and provide. She's a great asset for any team, and she'll definitely be able to showcase that this year. And Cam Milius was another one that has been training really well. A great silky mover as well. Got a bit of first team action last year, but didn't really get to showcase a lot of what she's capable of. And I think she'll definitely put that into action in the first game. I'd like to mention Georgia Foran. Personally, I think she was unlucky to get drafted last year. Just a great fullback, and one that in terms of knew how to read the play really well and just get herself into position that was really hard to beat as a key forward. She was just one that knew the game really well. So I think she'll definitely have some of the best starting games. Just she's got a point to prove now, and I think she was very unlucky to get not drafted last year. So I think we'll see a lot from Georgia Foran. But those are the main ones I think will come out of Sandy, and they're led by Martha Cantwell. She's a great coach, come from a background at Collingwood's AFLW, so she's got a lot of experience with the female development side, and she'll be a great one to watch throughout the year as a coach. And Sandy, like we said, they play Calder in round 3, April 1st, as the Saturday twilight to back up the boys on that day. So that's from Sandringham's side, and we move to Tassie now. We move to the only non-Victorian team in this conversation. Jonty, tell me what's been happening on the other side of the sea, even though it's not really the other side of the sea, but what's been happening down in Tassie?
Yeah, I suppose their trio of tall forwards are the ones that are going to be talked about the most, and it's going to be really interesting to see how those go. I mean, we speak about Western Bulldogs in the AFL, how their 4 big forwards are going to go, but from a Tassie girls perspective, Bella Parker Grace White and Georgia Clark are the three big forwards that they've got really high hopes on. And I think obviously there is going to be the opportunity to showcase them in different positions throughout the year. But I think their primary position is all at this stage seen as being forwards. So Grace White is one who previously was seen as a defender, but has shown traits in pre-season that she could move forward and is probably going to start there. She kicks it well and is a strong lead. So we'll be really interested to see how she goes. Bella Parker from Hobart. Tanisha Kolak's a athletic key defender with a really long booming kick coming out of the back line, and she uses that athleticism and long kick to transition really well. So she's one that the coach hopes can set them up really effectively. That's Jodie Clifford leading the Tassie Devils down there. And then they've got the Thompson twins on the northwest coast. So Lucy Thompson's a solid inside midfielder with really good goal sense, and Jasmine comes from the basketball background. So we've talked about obviously the multiple sports that a lot of these girls play and the skills that being a basketballer brings across to footy. So she's one who'll hope to bring that across for the Devils. So that's probably the wrap on Tassie. Obviously, they don't have Brooke Barwick, who did her ACL a couple of weeks ago. That was the really sad news to come out of there, because she was one that they were really high on and had a really good pre-season, but it seems to have handled it well and transitioned to a coaching position. Interesting to see how the Devils do go this season.
They're always a tough competitor, Tassie, and I think Vic teams wouldn't love travelling to ice. Actually, I'd say they would love travelling, because the Vic teams don't get to go, fly for a game very often. So, but it is in terms of, location, it's a hard team to beat over in Tassie. And they've always been competitive in the girls' league. So it'll be interesting to see how they go. And they kick off the season. So they are the first game of the season on Saturday. They play GWS. A lot of teams seem to be playing GWS in their first game, and that's at UTAS, so as in that stadium, which is great because that's where they play the AFL games at. Great to play at a big stadium like that, so awesome for the girls. And it'll be interesting to see how they kick off their season. And let's wrap up the club previews with the Western Jets. Jonty, what's been happening at Western? Who's impressing and who should we look out for?
Well, I think I've said Ash Centra and Lucia Painter have been the two that are on everyone's lips. And, if any Western Jets supporter or club member or family member has listened in, probably offended in that Christy Lee Weston Turner is probably just as hyped as them in the same conversation with what she can provide. She's got highlights aplenty already to her name. Really looking forward to seeing what she can deliver this season. Hopefully it's a consistent body of work, because that's what obviously AFLW clubs will be looking for. She started off on the right foot, had a really good pre-season and tested really well in the 20-metre sprint at the pre-season testing. That's 3.214 seconds. So that's elite when you talk about girls. And she's got a lot of favourable traits. Kira Wiley is another one who's part of the Vic Metro squad, one who's seen as solid overall. I guess she's really clean overhead and can pounce on the loose ball, which is obviously really important in the female game. I think her fundamental skills is probably what sets her apart. Megan Smart is one they've been really big on, that's had a really big pre-season. She stood out in a practice match against Calder, and whether she plays on the wing or in the midfield will be a watch, but she's versatile enough to do either and has the skill set that could lend itself to either. And Tamara Henry is another one who's had limited exposure, but is one to look out for early in the season. They're led by Hayley Gosso. So like we talk about, the 12 of the 13 clubs are led by new coaches, and she's one of them. And I guess, speaking about Western and all the clubs, really, there's a really even split. I know you talked about it with the Dragons. There's a really good split of 17 and 18-year-old talent, obviously a couple of 19-year-olds at some clubs. The talent improves year on year. So hopefully that trend continues, and Western's one club who hopes it does, with what I've heard from them.
And Western kick off their season against Tassie. They're the first team to travel over to Tasmania from Victoria, and they'll play on the 1st of April, and that is a double header with the boys. And it's quite a late game, actually. It's 3:30 for the girls and 5:45 for the boys, so a bit of a nighttime game, actually. I think it might be daylight savings by then. So great way to kick off the season for Western, with a bit of a trip. And to end, I've sprung this on you. I didn't say this before, but we're going to do our round one tips. We're going to go through the games and see who we think. Okay. It's very hard to tell right now because we haven't seen many of these teams in actions, but
Go on.
Tassie and GWS. I mean, I'm back in Tassie on this. The academy teams just don't seem to ever have the talent.
Yeah.
We're back Tassie. We're both back in Tassie. Dandenong and Sydney at Kilsyth. I think easy one, Dandenong again.
Pretty comfortably in that one, I think.
And then we have Geelong v GWV. First tough one to really choose from. I'm not sure which way to go with this, but I'm going to say Geelong. Just think home advantage.
I'll go GWV, just range to play well.
There we go. And then the last game of the round, only 4 games to kick off the season. Murray and Bendigo. I'm gonna back Murray. The talk I've heard from Emma Mackey, I'm liking what I'm hearing. I think their team will perform well and be able to adapt to any opposition. So I'm going to back Murray.
And I will say the Pioneers will get it done.
Awesome. Well, that wraps it up. We hope everyone has enjoyed, got a bit of an insight into what to look out for. I mean, I think this is the same as last season. These games should be live streamed if you can't get down to them on the Talent League app. So just go to the App Store and download that, and there should be an option to press watch stream. So you should be able to watch any of these games, and they do update stats about 24 hours later if you're interested in looking so you need to perform well. So we will be reviewing. I'll just give you a brief review of these 4 games next week, but next week will be our boys preview. The boys start on the 25th of March, so a week after, and all the teams play in round 1 except Tassie. So big preview to come for that like tonight. But until then, thanks, Jonty, for joining me. It was a great chat. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow up for it on our socials to keep up with our content. And until then, we will catch you next week.